I want to go back a little bit just to make it more interesting to see some things that the Rebbe changed or added. I'm just going to mention a few. So go back, if you're following the Sicha inside, go back to this beginning. I'm going to the second paragraph. With the second paragraph, the Rebbe said that the stories in this parsha about the counting of Geshen, that's not eternal. The Rebbe said, no, it doesn't matter. Begashmi is it's not, but Beruchni is it is. And the Rebbe says the Lashon here, even though Begashmi is it's not eternal, and he says because there was a commandment to count them, and the counting itself was also only once. The way it was written originally, and the Rebbe changed it, it said that after all, the Eibusher told them to count one time. This whole counting was a one-time thing. The Rebbe changed it and made it into two things. Number one, the mere fact that they were counted. It's something that's counting them. That itself shows it's not eternal. What's it got to do with me? They counted the Bnei Gershon. Plus, the Rebbe says, and even that counting was only a one-time thing. So the Rebbe changed it to make it into one thing. Then we'll just go through a few more things here. On the next column, the Rebbe said that in the Midbar, the reason they traveled in the Midbar is to be machnia, to subdue the klippe. And not only that, the Rebbe said that the that by them subduing the klippe and the darkness that covers up, they were mamshech elikus. The way it was written originally is two things. They were machnia the chitzainim, and they took away the darkness. The Rebbe took out the word took away, and he writes that they were machnia the chitzainim and the darkness. They were machnia the darkness. Okay, let's go weiter. In the next page, on page 17, Rebbe put in the words in the second paragraph and the third paragraph that the counting here that we're talking about is hamiyuchet b'inyan zeh, or counting miyuchet from 6:30. The Rebbe is making it clear what I said when we learned the Sicha, that he's not talking about the fact that they counted the Levim. Last week's parsha, they counted the Eden also to make him choshev. They counted the Levim to make him choshev. We're talking here, there was a special counting here, counting who are the ones that are going to do this job or that job or this job. And he wanted to make it specifically choshev for specifically this job, because this job contains the inyan of mevare the klippe, and that you need a kayach not to become bottled. So that would change it a few places here. The paragraph, this he put in those words. Here also, so the Rebbe put in these words here. In the next, down the page, in this Sif Gimel, the Rebbe said that when the person starts thinking that he's in the midbar, how's in the midbar? He looks around the people around him, and he sees that most of the people don't know about the Likkutei. Then he says, and those that do know, and even those that get nisayrer, but ain't sadik boretz asher yaseh tevelecha. Originally, it was written that most don't know, and those few that do know, they still, the way it was written before, and they get nisayrer only from time to time. It's not really thing. The Rebbe changed that. The Rebbe didn't like those words. The Rebbe changed it. Not that the few that the miyut that do know, the eila hayedim, those that do know, and they get nisayrer. So what's the problem with them? So the way it was written before, what's the problem with them? That even they get nisayrer, it's only very not often, etc., etc. And the Rebbe took that out. Says that's not the problem. The problem is that ain't tzaddik boris asher yaseh tevelecha. There's no tzaddik that is a complete tzaddik. Certainly, al kaponim, all these words the Rebbe wrote. Al kaponim, somebody who is not missing. Everybody is missing something. So he put in those words. And then, further on, what could a person think? So the Rebbe writes here, a person, these are all the Rebbe's words. A person realizing this, he could fall into sadness, depression, and give up hope. And what will he do? He will drop, he'll leave his shliches working with the people in his city, to run away. All these three lines the Rebbe put in. The next paragraph where it says Al Zebo Hero, the hero is Linseya b'midbar, you should travel in the midbar, and to change it. Originally it said the hero is from the traveling of the Bnei Yisrael in the midbar. The Rebbe added these words. The hero is that you have to travel. He made it very clear that you have to travel. In other words, he made it clear that what he's telling you is not that, learn from them. That the hero is Linseya b'midbar. Go to the midbar. Means the Ruchnas dik midbar. Go to these places. In Ha'ora 19, The Rebbe actually, amongst many things that he wrote here, he said if you machlit, kasha was the Rambam says that if you live in a place where there's no good people, then run away, don't stay there. But the Rebbe said if you machlit, the Rebbe said verbringen, if you make up your mind, betekef, the Rebbe added the word bechol hatekef. Not enough to make up your mind, just strong, with all the strength you have. And then this whole thing, the Rebbe added here also, that the Chazal say, Abol Tayar Messiah, they say, that you become that, it means Abol Tayar, and it means to be Matayar Acherim, all the things we said before that you have to change, all that the Rebbe wrote here. Let's go a little further. I want to just say which lines the Rebbe put in. You see on the next page, 18, where it says that you will, if you want to be like the Levim, like the Rambam says, you will get the Keach Mel Mailo. So here, this whole piece, from the words, you will get the Keach Mel Mailo, and the Chshivus, you won't become bottled, Darge le Darge, Noses Reish, Nisias Reish, Mitziruf, all those, till the words Validei Zeh, the Rebbe wrote in here too. And that's why you have to figure out exactly what the word means. The next part, where the Rebbe said you could, the same applies not only Legaba others, Gaba yourself. The Rebbe said when a person makes a cheshbon tzedek with himself, he put in the word tzedek. That you have to make an honest, when you make an honest cheshbon, you have to then you'll realize what you really are. And then when we go further, and the Rebbe says, what will a person think if he makes a cheshbon that he's not the way he's supposed to? How could I change what I'm doing? And the Rebbe added these three lines. Ubifrat, if you over v'shona, bo, shenasalik heter, especially if you did it and did it again, and becomes like heter. And bifrat, if you rogel b'yesef, if you did it more than twice. And the order here where the Rebbe brings that if you do it 3 times, it's called rogel. All that the Rebbe added here. And later on, when it says Maiserav, that we see from the Levim that they weren't working the Mishkan, and now they started, and the Eibishter gave them a keach. So you could also start. So the Rebbe said, added these words in the end of the second paragraph on this column, Umaiserav shenase kol ze bepel. Means the fact is that the taka happened. You see, they can do that. Also, on the next page, the end before Siv Hey, the Rebbe says that it shows that if you look like yourself like a midbar, you nevertheless could change it, and you'll bring Gilui Lekus into yourself. For all of Yemer v'shechanti b'seicham, and the Eibishter will say on you shechanti b'seicham. And then I just want to mention that the end of the Sicha, not the last 2 lines, but the paragraph before, the whole paragraph the Rebbe wrote, he changed from what it was written before. When he's trying to explain the difference between Sur Merah and Asay Teiv, that Sur Merah only protects the person generally. Asay Teiv is mitzvahs, which each one is different. Originally, and the Rebbe said this by Fabrenge, but not the way it says here. The Rebbe said a little different. And the way it was written, when they gave it into the Rebbe, had a whole piece here that the difference between Sumaran and Asay, and the Rebbe crossed it all out. And instead of that, Mamish, actually I gave that part to somebody to print now. I showed them there's a whole big, actually if you want to see, I want to show you here. This is, this is it. Here on this page, you see, this is the page that was originally, and this was written here. I don't know if you could see, I'll show you more. This is what was written, the whole page, the whole piece here, the Rebbe crossed out. And instead of that, the Rebbe wrote, that's how I used to write. He wrote on the side here, he wrote the whole thing of this paragraph here. So it's written. So the Rebbe only would write ganze paragraphs, he would write short, not not explained. So here it's also like that. So here explains the difference between Sur Merah, Asay Teiv, connection to Yeshen and Kos. So the Rebbe wrote this whole thing. And there are many more things that the Rebbe wrote, but I didn't go into everything. The Rebbe added things, but this is generally speaking. So this is the Sicha of Chelek Gimel, and they're actually in the project Likkutei Sichas this year. Next week, this is going to be the Sicha that are going to be. So we learn it ahead of time. So